Chapter 91 Round 2 You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The number one thing we need for the next round is a device called Pathfinder, Max said as he addressed the group. The second round was basically a labyrinth race to the center where everyone started from the same distance from the portal. There were n number of permutations and combinations possible to get to the center, but on average one would need at least 17.20 hours to find the path. In this round, there were no restrictions on inventory, which meant that Max and group could use any item that they wished for. Max advocated for the use of the tool called the Pathfinder, because he had used the tool in his past life during dungeon explorations and knew the effectiveness of the device. Isn't Pathfinder a device which just calculates geometric positional data? Anna asked, being aware of the machine in question. Yes, the Pathfinder is a device that does not allow the user to roam around in circles in labyrinths by giving an alert when one takes a turn that is headed towards an already explored direction. Be calm. While it won't be as fancy as some other dungeon tools, with the Pathfinder we can blindly start rushing through the labyrinth without fear of making wrong turns, and clear the trail through sheer speed run. Max tried to convince the others. How much does it cost? Sebastian asked, as although he did not know the exact cost of the device he knew that buying one won't be that cheap. 10 million gold. Max replied as a sharp hiss went throughout the group. Technically it was 2.5 million gold each, and although it was an astronomical sum, Max and Asiva could barely afford it because of the St. Maximus backing, whereas Anna had the money in spare, but Sebastian could not bring out that kind of money because he had no backing and no supporter behind him. I have about 6 mil. Anna said after a minute or so, trying to break the silence. I have 200k. Sebastian said as he put all of his savings into this. I have 2 mil. Asiva said nonchalantly, I'll fork the difference. Max said as he took over the sourcing problem. As Max tried to go onto the forums to bid for the item, he realized that he was not alone in trying to obtain the item, as he saw nearly 7 bids from fellow students. Not wanting to miss out on the limited stock of the item, Max knew he needed to contact the professionals as he reached out to his Platinum Card Service executive, transferred him the funds and some premium to help him secure the item. As expected, the Seven Seas Bank had deep contacts with other chambers of commerce, and although there were 11 bidders and only 3 units for sale, Max managed to secure 1 unit at a discounted price of 9.8 million gold. Max tipped the butler generously and then returned Sebastian the 200k he forked, because although Max's own personal savings dropped below $1 million after this purchase, he could not see his friend become penniless. With the purchase complete, the team took the next 2 days to sharpen their skills and recover from the fatigue of the last round, as finally 3 days later the round 2 of the tournament officially started. 72 hours later, varsity notification. Welcome to the labyrinth race. First 16 teams to get to the center wins the race. Good luck. Max held the Pathfinder in his hand and treated the dark gold-rated device with absolute care as the group started to sprint through the initial corridors of the labyrinth without caring much as to what turn they were taking. Right off the bat, Sebastian, who was the most advanced man, stepped on a trap and caused arrows to be shot towards the group, as Max had to take 1 arrow straight into his right arm inner to protect the Pathfinder in his hands. 230, damn it. Max cursed as Asiva pulled the arrow out of his hand, and applied ointment as Max drank an HP potion to regenerate. Be more careful guys, Max said as the group trotted with a little more vigilance afterwards, trying to make sure that they did not trigger more disasters. Of course it was a pipe dream, as the labyrinth was designed to create trouble for players at every turn, as the group experienced everything from poisonous snakes, crushing walls, rolling balls, instant pits of death, and sudden fire pits. By the time the 1-hour mark passed, the initially sprinting team were walking cautiously and in formation as they expected disaster at every step. Despite the slow pace of walking, the group was currently 4th closest to center, and although there was a long path still to cover, the Pathfinder helped them to not make any wrong turns and keep progressing in a set direction. The device was a lifesaver, because there were many turns that the group took which felt natural to them. However, it was the Pathfinder that reminded them that it was a wrong turn. Navigating the labyrinth without one would have resulted in absolute disaster, as the group praised Max every time the device corrected them from making a mistake. Just as they took one more turn, the group could hear faint whispers coming from down the tunnel ahead as Sebastian put up his hand as a signal to halt. There were players ahead, and it was both an opportunity and a danger, because should they confront the group and kill a single member, they would send the whole group back to the starting point. However, should they confront the group and get one of their own killed, they would be the ones to be teleported back instead. Staying hidden and doing nothing was always a safe option, but naturally the predatory group were not the ones with such a cowardly mentality. /////A/N. This bonus chapter has been sponsored by patron Cervantes91. Please thank him in the comments /////. Chapter 92 Reaching Center Room. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sebastian peeked at the group of timid dwarves running through the dungeon holding a weird mechanical device, and he instantly had that itch to smash the species under his boot. The human mind was fickle, it feared the strong and it looked down on the weak, which is why the moment Sebastian discovered that his enemies were the dwarven race he became excited for a fight. Guys, it's puny dwarves, let's rush them, Sebastian said in a hushed voice. No, dwarves are resourceful, we need to be careful. Max intervened, as he tried to calm the group down. Leave this to me, Anna said as she notched a special shining arrow into her bow and calmly took aim. The dwarves who were unaware of the danger were engrossed in their machine as they talked with each other and checked the level of the ground in the labyrinth ahead to see whether or not there were any traps with their mechanical acumen. Schwa! At the perfect moment when the head of the dwarf bent to reveal a small opening in his helmet's cover over his neck, Anna released an arrow that impaled itself straight into the dwarf's neck. 2300 critical hit. The dwarf died without even knowing where the attack came from as a silver light covered the entire group and they were teleported back to the starting point. Whistle, nice shot, Asiva complimented Anna as the elven princess smirked. I have generational experience in killing the tiny dwarves, Anna said as she flicked her hair in pride. Both elves and dwarves claimed to be the superior forging race and had fought countless battles throughout history. God, remind me to never cross this woman, Sebastian said as he prayed to the heavens, and the group chuckled. They quickly continued on their path and faced the challenges that laid ahead. Max was the only one who seemed to be lost in deep contemplation for a full 10 minutes, and several turns later he said, You know guys, if we just tailed the dwarves and let them dismantle the dangers ahead, we would have been faster and had a smoother journey. The group winced at this thought. They realized that Max was right, navigating labyrinths was the speciality of the race and the group had been too hot-blooded to kill them instead of using them. Shit. Never mind, no point arguing over spilled condiments, Sebastian said as the group progressed with a slightly heavy heart. After 8 hours since round 2 started, after about 8 hours, the group started to question whether the Pathfinder even worked properly or not, as the same looking halls after every turn started to drive them a little insane. The only solace they had was that every path opened a new sort of danger, and it was the only proof that they had to have not passed through that path before. Eventually, as they took a right, they saw a massive clearing in front of them as they saw what appeared to be the central room just 500 meters ahead. Yes! We've made it! Anna exclaimed in joy, as she was the one who felt the most suffocated inside the labyrinth. However, the path to the center was definitely not simple. Although the room they were in was large, there was only a narrow wooden bridge suspended with 2 ropes leading towards the center. Under the wooden bridge was what seemed to be calm murky green waters full of algae, but nobody was dumb to think it was plain water without anything sinister lurking inside. At the start of the wooden bridge there was a huge notice that read, "Can only support 1 person at a time." Max started to analyze the situation as he said, "We are possibly the first ones to reach here, however, going ahead is just plain suicide. Taking a single step further would mean that one of us would be committed to walking the bridge while the other 3 of us wait. The unknown challenges of the bridge aside, there is a big possibility of being hit by enemy attacks from any of the doors in the room. I suggest we wait for someone else to try first." Everyone looked across the room and saw over 48 entry doors into the central room. What Max said made perfect sense, as if during crossing an enemy emerged from one of the doors, they could become sitting ducks for an enemy attack. I disagree. I think we have the advantage, and every second we waste is a second wasted. I say we let Anna go first, she will cover the others from the other end once she crosses. Sebastian said, as his differentiating opinion caused the group to come to a voting deadlock. I agree with Sebastian's plan. Anna said meekly, okay, I agree too. Asiva said after thinking a bit as she looked towards Max with apologetic eyes. Max shrugged his shoulders and said, all right. Having experienced reincarnation, Max was a little more cautious when treading the unknown. He liked to rely on solid facts and information rather than going YOLO, but his hot-blooded friends seemed to like YOLO more. Anna started to walk the creaky bridge, and not even 50 steps in there was a shout from a distant corner of the room, look, someone is crossing the bridge. Kill them all. The attention of the group diverted to the attackers, as Max bit his tongue and unsheathed his sword as he said, shit, here we go again. Anna sped up her speed of crossing, however going faster only made the rope bridge tremble more violently, making walking on the wooden logs even harder. However, she tried her best and used her naturally superior tree climbing skills to somehow increase her pace to that of a normal jog. Max and the others, on the other hand, charged to be engaged in a hand battle. // This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Shadow 118. Please thank him in the comments below. // Chapter 93 Chaos. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max and Sebastian bursted with speed as they rushed towards the enemies. Although no words were spoken, both of them knew exactly whom to target from the group of four, as Sebastian landed an overhead slash to one of the lanky-looking swordsmen who blocked it with great difficulty. However, this made him completely open to Max's attack as Max stabbed him straight in the heart. 2400 critical hit. It was a one/death as Max's bloodsucker blade completely destroyed the player's heart and caused him to die. As one of the players of the group was dead, the rest of them were teleported back to the starting point after painstakingly coming all the way to the center. I have crossed, guys, hurry. A shout could be heard from Anna, as Max and Sebastian turned towards Asiva and gave her the nod to go ahead. Anna stood on the other side of the wooden bridge, her bowstring pulled tight as she prepared to shoot at the first sight of the enemy. Not even a full minute later, two different groups emerged from two different sides, and Max and Sebastian were locked in a dangerous three-way deadlock. Fuck me. Max cursed as he and Sebastian ran towards opposite directions, as they gambled a 4v1 fight. Thankfully, both Asiva and Anna had long-range abilities for support, as while Anna covered Sebastian with her arrows, Asiva threw daggers with deathly precision to cover Max. It's the Hound, beware. One of the beast men in the group shouted as he extended his claws out of his fur. Max faced a group of 1 bear. Beast man, 2 tiger, beast man, and 1 panther. Beast man. It was a suicidal move for him to charge towards them, however, under the circumstances he had no other option. The bear. Beast man swiped his claws towards Max's neck as Max had to roll through to avoid being hit as he tried to stab the bear but was blocked by the tigers. A claw attack by the bear. Beast man landed on Max following his failed attempt to stab him, as the claws of the beast tore through his armor and gave Max some injuries on his chest. 749 shit, Max thought as he jumped backwards to create some distance as Asiva threw 2 daggers to create distraction for Max to retreat. Boy, use the power of flames. You can't win in a close fight against them, they are physically superior to you. Grandpa Drax suggested. Max nodded his head and started spamming fireballs at his enemy. A normal tier 1 mage could never keep up a barrage like Max, as every 2 seconds Max was able to launch 1 fireball attack. Max completely suppressed the enemy using his PvE fire mage prowess as he steadily applied damage. Damn it, are his mana reserves inexhaustible? He has already spammed 100 fireballs. The panther beast man groaned in complaint as a part of its fur coat caught fire from Max's spell. Max progressively drove his enemies towards the edge of the open area and towards the lake below, as although Max was not sure what was in the lake beneath, he was confident that whatever lay beneath must be deadly. Fire blast. After spamming a 150 fireballs, Max stepped up his game and unleashed a fireball as the two tiger, beastmen in trying to avoid the blast jumped from the arena and into the murky water below. Crunch before their bodies even touched the surface of the water, a large fish jumped outside and bit their bodies in half as it munched on their crunchy bones before entering water once more. The two remaining team members were instantly teleported back towards the starting point with two of their team members dead. Bloody hell, Max cursed as he shivered from thinking about the large fish residing in the murky water. The sound of bones crunching as blood splattered all across was sure to give him nightmares for many days to come. There was no time to dally for Max, as he looked across the room to find two more groups entering as he decided to fuck it all and started to run across the wooden bridge since Asiva had already crossed. Max jumped from log to log like an absolute madman, as the rope bridge trembled violently under him. However, Max did not care, as in just 2 short minutes he had crossed to the other side. While the three of them had already crossed, Sebastian was caught in a bloody battle, as even with both Anna and Asiva covering him, there were close to 7 teams in the center now and an all-out brawl had broken out. Currently the other groups were reluctant to cross the bridge, because 3 enemy members were waiting for them if they dared to cross. However, they needed to cross anyhow if they wished to advance. This led to 2 separate team members trying to mount the bridge at once as the wooden bridge snapped and broke. Both the idiots were plunged into water, and not even 10 seconds after they splashed in, they became fish food. With the bridge broken, the only way to cross to the other side was now to traverse through the murky waters and climb the wooden logs that were hanging out of the water to reach the central portion. However, with the giant fish swimming somewhere on the inside, crossing the lake was next to impossible. Gears turned inside Max's head at incredible speed as he thought of a solution to get Sebastian over. Cutting one end of the rope of the wooden bridge, Max began tying it around his old uncommon steel sword as he tried to make a harpoon out of it. Max's plan was simple: he wanted to make a single rope zip line for Sebastian to cross, Rambo style. However, this plan was definitely easier said than done. Max was close to 400 meters away from Sebastian and even more from the walls of the central room. While for someone with godly strength like this brother, attempting this shot might be child's play, for a tier 1 weakling like him this was an extremely difficult task. Chapter 94 Clearing Round 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Roy Kingsman's POV. After nearly 8.5 hours of constantly turning inside the labyrinth corridors, the Kingsman group barely reached the center. Master, a massive brawl has broken in the center. What to do? Subordinate 1 asked politely. Of course we fight, true men never shy away from a fight. Draw your weapons and charge. Roy Kingsman said as the group drew their weapons and joined the fray. Meanwhile Max tied a sailor's knot on one end of his sword as he prepared for a large javelin-style throw to the other end. I don't think you are supposed to grip it like that. Anna said as she frowned, looking at Max gripping the sword as if he was gripping a baseball. To throw the object to the furthest distance, Max needed to grip it properly like a javelin so that there was minimal power loss. Max exhaled sharply. Although he was no Olympic athlete, he undoubtedly felt like one at the moment as he eyed the wall about half a kilometer away. Max loosened his shoulder to allow maximum flexibility, and after 1 or 2 dummy motions, he threw the sword with all his might. Shwa! The sword looked to be gaining enough momentum as it soared through the sky. However, the angle of Max's throw was wrong. Hence, after ascending for a while, gravity caused it to start descending in a parabola curve. It appeared as if the sword would land in between a group of brawling players instead of lodging itself on the wall. Meanwhile Roy was busy fighting, as after brilliantly disarming the enemy of his sword, the group of 4 began stomping him down like a pack of hounds. At the moment Roy's complete attention was on the player he was stomping on as he said, "Flatten this mofo's round ass, bloody idiot." while violently stomping on the player's bum. Even his subordinates stomped on the player, but their expressions turned ugly when they heard the words of their leader. Nobody wanted to stomp on another man's bum, but ever since their leader was exposed a few days ago, all his actions had become borderline crazy. Hence regretfully they followed his orders in stomping the man's ass. At this very moment, a sword flying at high speed advanced towards an unaware Roy Kingsman, and unfortunately for him, lodged itself straight down his rabbit hole just as he had lifted his right leg to stomp the enemy. "Agh my ass." Roy Kingsman shrieked in a high-pitched sound as everyone stopped fighting for a second to see what was going on, only to find a sword brutally lodged inside a man's rear end. 1450 critical hit. Max saw the critical hit notification and bursted laughing as he could not believe the probability of such a scene occurring. However, things only went from bad to worse for Roy Kingsman, who laid flat on the ground as his subordinates contemplated on what to do with the sword. While everyone else resumed fighting, there was an unsaid agreement amongst everyone to leave Roy Kingsman and group alone after the tragedy their leader just suffered, as everyone barely contained their laughter. Sebastian walked over to the group, laughing out loud, and said, "Roy, do you need help to take it out of your bum?" Roy Kingsman replied, "Yes, it hurts, please remove it gently." The subordinates of the Kingsman clan were utterly disappointed by the boss's display of manliness, as many decided right this moment to change their allegiance from Roy to Keen Kingsman after this round was over. Sebastian removed the sword from Roy's bum, as the other party screamed and moaned at once, confusing his party members on whether he was in pain or whether he was in pleasure. Regardless, Sebastian took the sword and from a closer range he quickly threw it on the wall at a height so that a natural inclination was formed from his end to the center, so that he could zip line without trouble. Mercilessly jumping off Roy Kingsman's bum as a cushion, Sebastian used his robes to form a sling to slide over the rope, as he began crossing the zip line from end to end. Once others saw him crossing, immediately everyone rushed towards the zip line as the fighting around Roy Kingsman and his subordinates increased monumentally, with their group returning back to base after Roy Kingsman was killed by some player. Sebastian crossed half the zip line without any trouble, however as the height reduced he could see a large shadow traveling beneath him in the murky lake as he gulped a mouthful of saliva and prayed for his safe journey. With only about 50 meters left, the fish finally leaped out of water with its massive jaws opening, when Anna, who was on guard, shot an arrow immediately into its eye, foiling its trajectory and saving Sebastian by a narrow margin. Sebastian crashed and rolled at the center as Max quickly cut off the ropeway once he arrived, causing over 12 players to fall in the murky lake due to the zipline being cut. "Damn you, hound!" They cursed as they fell. However, Max did not care. Rushing towards the return key, the four of them held the four corners at once to activate the return feature, as they became the first group to clear Stage 2. Varsity notification. Congratulations for being the first team to clear Round 2. You have set a new university record by clearing it in 8 hours and 44 minutes. Your group has secured 4 spots in the coming individual round battles. The group hugged and rejoiced reading the varsity notification, as only now did they realize the kind of shitstorm they had been through to reach this point. Round 2 had been an absolutely wild ride, however through wits, bravery, and a lot of luck, they managed to go through to the next round and reach a little closer to their goals. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target, good job everyone. ////. Chapter 95 Invitations. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A few hours later, in the university auditorium that could seat up to 50,000 people was jam-packed today, as the principal was going to personally congratulate and reward those who had cleared the team rounds and advanced to the individual rounds. Every student enrolled in the University for Nourishment of Young Talents dreamed of being one of these 64, however, after the difficult merit-based race to be one of the top 10,000 and then an even more difficult team round, only 64 had the skill to stand above everyone else. For those who had entered round of 64, it was an opportunity of a lifetime as accept the rewards promised by the university. Fighting on such a grand stage where various faction leaders, scouts and patriarchs would be present was a great opportunity for them to be recruited into a strong faction with a favorable contract. It was a chance to gain unprecedented fame and glory, as the matches would be streamed live across the universe with billions watching. With an extremely impressive list of alumni, the University for Nourishment of Young Talents had gained a big impression in the universe, as many top guilds/mercenary organizations and clans kept an eye out for promising talents. Everyone who enrolled into the university had some ability, because without having a powerful background or some real prowess, the fees were unaffordable for 99% of the masses. However, those who advanced to the top 64 could be considered the cream of the crop. As even amongst countless individuals with deep family backgrounds these people stood at the top. The principal gave a big speech as to how this was a grand opportunity for the participants and how the spirit of fair play and indomitable will was important for success. He introduced all 64 participants one by one amongst deafening applause of the crowd, as the university journalist took their pictures for the invitation pamphlet of the upcoming fights. Max was asked to remove his mask for the photo, but he refused as he took a double-fisted stance of a boxer for the photo. For the rewards of getting into the top 64, Max was now guaranteed a graduation certificate without the need to appear for final exams and pay the 100,000 merit points graduation fee. And he also got a 70% off on all services availed at the university for the remainder of his time in the university. It was a massive windfall for someone like Max who was an avid user of college services like its training halls, and it was also going to help him lighten the burden on his pocket while giving treats in the canteen. As a participant he got tickets to invite 2 family members to the round of 64 fight. However, Max was not sure if his brother and sister-in-law could make it or not. Regardless, he decided to send them the invite anyway, because other than his brother he had no other family to invite. The individual rounds were going to start in 3 weeks' time, so that all participants had sufficient time to improve their skills and rest and make strategies. However, the opponents of their fights were not revealed so that no fighter would intentionally sabotage or hurt other fighters before the fight started. Max was sure as to what he was going to aim for in the next 21 days, as he wanted to hit stat maximization for Tier 1 by hook or by crook by the time the first round started. He had no doubt in his mind that many fighters would try and push their levels into Tier 2, looking for temporary gains rather than long-term goals. However, if Max was to compete with these Tier 2 powerhouses he needed to complete his stat maximization himself. Although there was no awkwardness between the team members, everyone knew that there was a 5% probability that they faced each other in the first round itself, and even if they did not face each other straight away, the probability would only increase as time went on. This meant that the team needed to be prepared to face each other in battle, and it was a lot easier said than done because of everything that they had been through together. The bond between the 4 was as real as friendship got, and nobody wished to face each other in a brutal contest. Despite this fact, the 4 teenagers mutually agreed to not hold back if they did fight each other in battle and harbor no hard feelings for the winner. The team made a pact to shake hands before and after a fight if they fought each other, to show that there were no hard feelings, before going their separate ways to start preparing for the tournament. Meanwhile Thor, an invitation to the round of 64. Seems like my son has some real skill. Gunnar informed the university staff that Thor Odinson would be present to witness the battles. Tell them to prepare accommodation and food. It's their honor to host me, Thor said as he glanced over the invitation in his hand. It had been a long time since he had been invited to such a low-level battle, but as an encouraging father he was willing to go. Meanwhile Naomi, honey, Max sent us some invites to some fight. Naomi said as she rocked the cradle of the 2 babies with one hand and checked her phone with the other. Oh. Rudra said looking up from the plate of food he was stuffing in his mouth towards his wife. Yeah, the date is written in the galactic format, but if my maths is not wrong it's about 21 days from now. Naomi said, Rudra nodded, I think it's some college event, we should go as his family. Naomi suggested, nah, Rudra waved it off, being a guy he knew that no guy wanted their family to attend the college sports day, being present for the child makes all the difference. Did you not read that in the parenting book? Naomi asked in a stern voice. Rudra frowned as he said, Max is 17. 18, but definitely not a kid. Naomi looked at him with stone-cold eyes as she said, clear your schedule, we are going. Rudra felt shivers run down his spine at his wife's attitude as he sulked back into eating his food, resigning to her wishes. Chapter 96 Ready to Fight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Max restarted his training routine and immediately noticed that something felt off after not training for about a week. Although he was doing the same exercises and the same drills that he was familiar with, his gains became much faster as every few hours he could hear a stat increase. Max was pleasantly surprised to see that after taking a week off from exercising to focus on the tournament had got him extremely motivated and in the correct mindset to train, as now training under a time constraint saw his results improve by a mile. With a clear goal in mind, Max felt slightly more pressured and focused on his task, which somehow polished his movements a little more than his training a week ago. It seemed like training for a reason gave him the X-factor boost. Even Drax, who was usually very vocal about Max's faults during training, was surprisingly calm during the days as he rarely corrected Max's form on anything. The old AI was having a good time living inside Max these days as he could see the growth between the kid who had enrolled in the university 10 months ago to the kid Max had become now, and he could almost say that he was proud. The reason why Drax stressed on almost was because Max was still too soft when it came to trusting people in his opinion. If it were up to Drax, he would have Max not even trust his own brother to have the best intentions in heart for him, much less friends like Asiva, Anna or Sebastian. However, he kept his mum regarding this issue, knowing that it was a sensitive topic for Max. Rudra had shockingly accepted Max's invitation to come to the round of 64 matches alongside his wife, and Max had a strong feeling from reading the message that his brother sent him that he was forced by sister-in-law Naomi to attend. Regardless, Max was happy that his brother was coming to see him fight, as this gave him some extra motivation to shine as brightly as possible. Filled with excitement, nervousness, and an indomitable drive to improve, Max trained hard for the 3 weeks before the tournament started, and although he did not manage to reach stat maximization with his agility and constitution stat refusing to maximize just like when he was in Tier 0, he managed to maximize the other 4. A few hours before the tournament, Max was nervously tapping his shoes in an isolated corner of the university, as he tried to calm down his raging heart before the start of the tournament. Hello. Severus said, seemingly appearing out of nowhere as he shocked the nervous Max. What the hell? Max complained as he frowned. Severus was the only individual who could bypass Max's new heightened senses, as not only did Severus never make any sounds before arriving, he also seemed to love giving surprises and shocking a calmly sitting individual. Your heart is beating faster than a horse, that blood pressure is definitely not healthy. Severus said, how do you know that my heart is beating fast? Max asked in protest, but was slammed badly by both Severus and Drax at once. Because he can hear you, stupid, Drax said in his mind. Because I can hear it, Severus replied. Damn it, Max cursed, embarrassed to be caught in such a position. Severus ignored the cursing and said, okay, now, strip. Max's eyes widened in disbelief at what his ears were hearing as he said, sorry, what? Severus pressured, yes, strip, I need to wrap your whole body in a special non-tearing fabric. Max narrowed his eyes and asked, why? Severus explained, my dearest boy Max, it has come to the St. Maximus clan's notice that you shall be fighting in the round of 64. Since you are an absolute idiot who knows nothing, let me explain your situation. The round of 64 will be held in the Oval Arena. The Oval Arena is an open arena where natural sunlight shines brightly from above. If while fighting you tear your common robes covering your body, you will be exposed to the harsh sunlight leading to your skin burning and you losing the fight. To avoid losing a match due to such petty reasons, the St. Maximus clan has financed a 12 million gold coin fabric that is extremely hard to destroy to cover your body. Not only will it give you protection against cuts and bruises, it has some minute self-healing properties, which means that even if it's cut and you are injured, it will quickly re-heal to cover the cut. It's not indestructible, but it will help you a lot. So strip now so that I can wrap it around you properly. Upon hearing Severus's explanation, Max immediately began stripping as he allowed Severus to tightly wrap the cool-to-touch special fabric around him. I heard your brother is coming to attend. Severus asked in a hushed voice. Yes. Max replied, good, you must exaggerate how good the St. Maximus clan has been to your brother, okay? Severus said in a half-threatening, half-pleading tone. Max started to chuckle as he understood the game behind the St. Maximus clan sponsoring such an expensive item for him. Hearing his laughter, Severus's face turned a little red as he knew he was exposed, as he sheepishly said, the destroyer-class battleship sold by your brother at a discount to St. Maximus is a steal deal, saving us billions in wealth. We want to buy another one after noticing the superior performance of the first, and it would help the clan a lot if you can put in a good word for us. Severus came clean, and Max stopped laughing and agreed. The St. Maximus clan had indeed helped him through the semester, and Severus had actually looked out for him, so he was not averse to helping them back this one time. ///////n. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Vol2010, please thank him in the comments for this one. Find Max's updated stat panel in the author notes below /////. Chapter 97 Thor meets Rudra. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Thor arrived at the university and was greeted by nervous teachers and staff who were extremely polite while inviting him in. There was a red carpet laid out for Thor, and everyone around him had big smiles plastered all over their faces and a subservient attitude towards the leader of the Thunder Nation. Behind Thor was Gunnar, a fat dwarf, and his personal assistant. Although he was fat, having a massive belly, Gunnar was a Tier 5 powerhouse himself and not to be trifled with. Behind Gunnar were the Thunder Legion elites. 12 of them to be precise, who walked in absolute formation, matching each other step for step. Why has the principal not come to greet me? Thor asked, his tone extremely arrogant. The head teacher cowered at the question as he said, Mighty Thor, Sir Principal is busy with the tournament preparations and sends his apologies for not being able to personally greet you. Gunnar the henchman became angry at this as he said, how insolent. The principal needs to know his place. How is the tournament more important than greeting Thor? Gunnar. Thor roared in anger, as the dwarf dropped to one knee. Of course the tournament is important, my son fights in it. Let the principal do the preparations, I don't mind. Thor spoke as the teachers collectively breathed a sigh of relief. Well said, wise master, I had not thought about the young master. Gunnar apologized like the dog that he was, and Thor accepted. Thor strolled through the university grounds with a big smile on his face, as he scanned the area for beauties to pursue until his eyes landed on one waiting in the parent stands. Exquisite. Thor said, looking at the woman as he ran his hands through his beard, making sure he looked sharp as he made his move. Good afternoon, most beautiful human, I am Thor Odinson, Thor said as he extended his right hand. Oh. I'm Naomi Rajput. Naomi said, shaking his hand with a smile, let's discuss more about today's tournament in my private quarters. I have the VIP box allotted to me. Thor said with a big smile, flexing his status on Naomi. Naomi was completely unmoved as she said, no thank you Mr. Odinson, I'll rather enjoy the match with my husband in our VIP box. Gunnar frowned hearing this as he said, insolent woman, do you even know who you are talking to? He is T. Before Gunnar could ever complete his sentence, his neck was sliced apart by a sword attack from afar as Thor immediately summoned his hammer, the legendary Mjolnir, alarmed by the speed and suddenness of the attack. The teachers around Thor were absolutely horrified at the scene of watching Gunnar being decapitated without even a slightest hint of an attack, as they watched an extremely handsome man with blonde hair and blue eyes walk domineeringly towards the group, with an extremely angry expression on his face. Nobody talks to my wife in such a disrespectful tone. Nobody. Rudra said in a powerful voice, causing many teachers to piss in their pants. Thunder trickled all over Thor's body, as rage erupted in his heart seeing his loyal subordinate die like this in front of him. How dare! Thor wanted to get angry, however he saw an incredible scene before his own eyes at this instant, as Rudra tore through space at speed impossible for even a tier 8 god to move through, as he dodged Thor's hammer stab and placed his sword over his throat, pausing just before taking his head. Blood trickled down the side of Thor's neck as Rudra said, "It's a wild zone, the death is not permanent, I will give you compensation for your subordinate's death, but if you are an honorable man you should understand that I cannot take such a tone being used against my wife lying down." Thor's breathing became rapid, he felt tingles all over his body as he realized that the man in front of him was not a mortal but a god, and a very powerful one at that, as he smiled and said, "Of course, I Thor am a great lover of women, if one talked this disrespectfully with any of my 215 wives I would probably do the same." Dilviko Naomi snorted when she heard the number, for her tolerating her husband's NPC love back in Omega was difficult enough, but she would never share him with 2 other women, much less 215. Rudra retreated his sword as he extended his hand and said, "Shikini." One night, the tension in the air dissipated after the handshake and even Gunra revived after a few seconds passed. "Who the hell dares to attack me? Come forward if you are a man, you sly lit." Gunra wanted to rant as soon as he was reborn, however, Thor landed a powerful punch straight to his head flattening him on the ground as he said, "Kowtow to God Shikini, how dare you talk to his wife disrespectfully." Gunra, being the obedient dwarf that he was, immediately changed his tone as he said, "I'm sorry God Shikini, I could not recognize Mount Tai and talked in a high tone with your wife. Please punish me for my stupid actions, I promise it will never happen again." Rudra chuckled seeing the cartoon character apologize. He knew he was not sincere but he also knew that he harbored no ill feelings against him or Naomi and that he was just a simpleton, so Rudra tossed him a pack of 12 perfect grade mana potions, with the value of each individual potion being 4 million gold coins. For the experience loss, Rudra said as Gunra became extremely happy to see the gift and immediately bowed even lower, this time because of genuine respect. Thor stroked his beard and smiled as he said, "See you in a while God Shikini, while you have a beautiful wife to accompany you in your room, I just have Gunra, you must excuse me till I find a suitable partner, I will surely meet you afterwards." Rudra shrugged his shoulders and smiled, as the 2 gods parted ways much to the relief of the school management. If an actual fight did break out between Rudra and Thor, the entire asteroid that the university was built upon would shatter after a single strike exchanged between the two, so it was a huge relief for them that the matter was settled peacefully. Naomi happily tugged her arms between her husband's as a huge smile was plastered on her face. She absolutely loved it when her husband showed his possessive side over her, and how domineering he could be at times. If it were another man, they would think twice before offending a god with the stature of Thor, however, not Rudra. He was one guy who did not give AF ***** about who it was if they crossed his family. /////A/N. This bonus chapter is sponsored by patron Revol 2010, please thank him for this one. /////. Chapter 98. The lots you are listening at novelfull.audio. Severus visited Rudra in the parents' VIP box, as the first thing he said to the human god was not greetings or business, rather it was a warning. "God Shikini, sir, I must implore that you maintain the story that you have come here to support the St. Maximus clan's talents, which are both a Siva and Raven. Please do not reveal you are here for your brother to anyone. Max strictly wishes to keep his Earth and Sigma life separate." Rudra nodded. He was not at all against this arrangement. If it were up to him, he would have never even come to the university. According to his personal beliefs, family support during a fight only brought humiliation to a fighter. He had no intentions of publicly chanting Max's name or putting up banners, however he could not say the same for his wife. "Honey, please don't use the 'Go Max Go' posters you made, you heard the guy no." Naomi's face flushed in a deep red. She had spent the last 24 hours preparing all sorts of banners and posters to support Max, but it seemed like it would all go down the drain now. Meanwhile it was fight day, and all fighters were given their private dressing room and a healer in the oval arena, as the opponents of the draw were finally revealed. Max's first opponent was a Tier 2 mage called Elyon. He was a second-year senior in the university, a rare breed who did not manage to qualify the first time around. Ever since missing the cutoff for the tournament the previous year, he worked hard to enter the top 10,000 this time around and along with 3 other oldies managed to get past the team rounds. He was given a 3% chance of winning the tournament overall, which was slightly above average, whereas Max was given a 1.4% probability to win the overall tournament which was slightly below average. Max had seen Elyon fight sometimes in the wild while farming merit points, and he knew that Elyon had 2 notable attacks that he needed to be wary of. His first attack was Bind. It was a Tier 1 spell that spawned tree vines to restrain an enemy from the ground to restrict their movement for 3.5 seconds. It was a spell that he must evade, because Elyon could spam it multiple times, and the kicker spell that he had was called Twin-Headed Flamethrower, which he used to critically damage the enemy once he was restricted. This was entirely the reason why Max felt like he would be able to win this fight easily, because the strongest spell of the enemy was the Tier 2 spell called Twin-Headed Flamethrower and Max was an individual who was immune to flame damage under Tier 3 because of the Agni Astra. Apart from these spells his enemy also had a powerful defensive spell called Wind Wall, which was the wind version of Max's Flame Wall. However, it was a good way to mount defense. Going into the fight, Drax gave Max 3 important pieces of advice. 1. Do not get caught up in the vines. 2. Maintain a close proximity and attempt hand-to-hand combat. 3. Never become complacent and always assume that the enemy has a hidden card left. While Max only focused on his strengths before the fight and the enemy's weaknesses, Drax did the opposite. Drax reminded Max that the opponent was a year senior to him and had spent 2 years inside the university honing his craft. Not only was he a tier higher than Max, he was already 30 levels into Tier 2 at level 130, which meant that Max was most likely going to be outdone by the mage even in Max's strong suits like speed. Although Max had a decent chance to win the fight, he needed to approach it with a level head and an analytical approach. As Max prepared his strategy, the tournament officially kicked off and the first fighters took the stage. The roaring sound of the crowd was almost deafening, and even Max felt a little pumped when he saw the 2 fighters duke it out in the arena. Max's fight was scheduled to be the 3rd one of the day, with the second fight being between Asiva and Keen Kingsman. While Max was only mildly interested in the first fight, he was sure that the second one was going to be absolutely brutal. Meanwhile Asiva stocked her weapons and drank high-grade human blood to bring her satiety to a 100% before the fight. She did the ritualistic reflex training of flipping her daggers and catching the tip with her thumb and little finger, as taught to him by her dad before the fight to get her mind in a sharp working condition and his body muscles coordinated with the brain. There were thousands of media individuals present in the arena audience, as well as some of her own defeated clansmen. The piece of trash clan leader of the Kingsman clan Kingsman did not come to support his children. However, Asiva was sure that after this humiliating defeat he would see her face at least once. She would make sure that he slept tonight knowing that Asiva Paredes was still out for his blood. This fight was personal for Asiva. She and the Kingsman had butted heads all over the semester, and with the Kingsman pulling a fast one over her in the round 1 of the team fights, Asiva only prayed to the gods to give her one go at them in the individual round so that she could get her revenge. Luckily for her, the gods had granted her wish, and now without a dozen henchmen to hide behind, nobody could save Keen Kingsman from her wrath. As the first fight ended, the officials signaled for Asiva to come up to the oval arena, as she clutched her daggers and walked with pride onto the fighting stage. Chapter 99 Asiva vs Keen Kingsman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asiva was greeted by a massive cheer from the crowd as she walked onto the fighting stage as hushed conversations erupted all over the crowd. She had become an infamous public figure in the university ever since she made a ruckus on the very first day and was whipped publicly. She had gained the nicknames Asiva the Bloodless and Asiva the Heartless. having brutally rejected over 75 proposals by men and 14 by women over the last 9 months. The feud between her clan and the Kingsmen was dirty laundry of the noble world that everyone knew about. Which is why they were excited to see the Princess of Nowhere take on the scion of the Kingsmen in a revenge fight. Surrender now, and I won't beat you to a pulp like my father beat your wastrel dad. Keen Kingsman said, trying to infuriate Asiva and get under her skin, as his comments elicited a huge crowd reaction. Asiva however was calm, her facial expressions showed that she was seething inside, however, her eyes were laser-focused as they stared deep down her enemy's soul. Protect yourselves at all times, respect the rules of the tournament at all times and listen to my command at all times. The match ends if a student dies/surrenders or becomes incapable of continuing. The use of all potions is prohibited. You can shake hands now if you wish to. The referee explained the rules before the fight started, but both parties already knew them. Keen Kingsman cheekily smiled as he extended his right hand to shake Asiva's, however Asiva did not move a muscle as she continued staring in Keen Kingsman's eyes. She has no sportsmanship. He shouted to the crowd as many laughed. Keen Kingsman was playing the clown before the start of the fight, but the time for talk was now over. Okay, go back to the white spots and prepare to fight at my signal. Both Asiva and Keen Kingsman returned to the white spots which marked the starting position for all fighters as the moment they reached there the referee shouted the command, fight. Asiva immediately threw 2 daggers towards Keen Kingsman who unsheathed his sword and prepared to swat them off. While he could have sworn that he only saw 2 daggers coming towards him, in what seemed to be an illusion the 2 daggers turned to 14 midway as Keen Kingsman panicked, unable to understand what was going on. 159.304 2 daggers pierced his left thigh and right arm as Keen Kingsman winced in pain. While out of the 14, 12 were illusions he was unable to see through the trick as the attack successfully connected. As he returned his focus back on the battlefield he realized he could not find out where Asiva was at all, as while he was focused on the incoming attack she had apparently disappeared. Alarmed, Keen Kingsman began looking all around him, unable to discern where exactly Asiva was until he saw a shadow moving towards him with extreme speed from the periphery of his eyes. Ack! Keen Kingsman awkwardly raised his sword in the path of the shadow, in hopes of blocking her path, however, Asiva easily sidestepped his clumsy attempt and rammed into him from the side, knocking him off his feet and lodging 2 daggers into his ribs. 800.800 Keen Kingsman's HP dropped to a dangerous orange level, meaning he had less than 30% of his HP pool left from here on out. Knocked down on his ass he tried to swing his sword wildly as Asiva kicked the sword out of his hands and landed a roundhouse kick straight to his jaw. Fa! 250 Asiva broke his front 2 teeth as she stood tall over his now cowering body with a cold gleam in her eyes and 2 shiny daggers in her hands. I surrender, shouted Keen Kingsman. The referee immediately stepped in between Asiva and Keen Kingsman to separate the two. For a moment Keen Kingsman had a big smile plastered over his face, as although he had lost he thought he had deprived Asiva of her satisfying revenge, but he was wrong. Everyone in the crowd booed his lack of spine and looking at the smiling Asiva he knew that his goal had certainly not been achieved. Asiva had completely man-handled him in the fight, and the end she had choreographed was precisely a surrender. With the universe watching, she wanted the headlines to be, "The Kingsman Scion admits embarrassing defeat to the Paredes Princess," so that the universe knew just how spineless the Kingsmen truly were. The winner of this match via surrender, Asiva Nightblade Paredes. The referee raised her right hand in victory as the crowd showered her with praise. Surprisingly she saw her idiot godfather smiling stupidly in the crowd in his janitor outfit as he clapped for her win. Although she was never going to admit it, this scene made her feel a little warm inside her stomach. Asiva walked off the stage, and saw Max lightly stretching as he walked on, as she said, "Crush him," before she walked off. Max smiled under his mask. He had seen the previous battle from start to finish and Asiva's performance had undoubtedly lit a fire under him at the moment. "Yep, I'll crush him," Max murmured under his breath, as he was welcomed to a round of claps and cheers from the audience as he faced his enemy. Max ran his eyes across the arena only to notice his sister-in-law Naomi waving at high intensity towards him, as Max chuckled and waved back at her. Beside her was his brother, who was leaning on the railing, watching him with calculative eyes. "The hell are you looking at, a hound? Your opponent is right here." "Elyon," his opponent said. Max still kept looking at the crowd, now pretending to wave at random chicks as he said, "I'm just trying to not look at your ugly face before the fight starts." Elyon was visibly irked by this comment as Max realized that his opponent was a prideful idiot. This was a weakness he could easily exploit. /////A/N. This is a bonus chapter for hitting the GT target. Good job everyone. ////. Chapter 100 Max vs Elyon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Protect yourselves at all times, respect the rules of the tournament at all times, and listen to my command at all times. The match ends if a student dies/surrenders or becomes incapable of continuing. The use of all potions is prohibited. You can shake hands now if you wish to. The referee read over the rules as Max extended his rubber latex glove-covered hand towards Elyon to shake. Elyon was reluctant, but he gave back the handshake much to the joy of the crowd. "Do you know why I wear these gloves, Senior Elyon?" Max asked in an innocent voice. "Bvec, why?" Elyon asked curiously. "Because I hate touching ugly men like you." Max replied with his red eyes shining as Elyon visibly fumed over the comment. "Why you?" Elyon wanted to punch Max right in his mask at the moment, however the referee stopped him and said, "Fighters, take your positions." Max began hopping to his spot, as he infuriated Elyon even more with his tactics as the latter shouted, "You are toast, Raven, you will burn to death today." The audience erupted in a big "oh" over this threat, but Max only innocently replied, "Good luck with that." Elyon clenched his fists in anger, as he could not understand what the other party's problem was at all. This was an honorable fight between two fighters. Why did he have to sully it with such a dirty tongue? Elyon was angry and he wanted to make Max pay for it as soon as the fight started. The moment Max reached his spot and turned to face Elyon, the referee signaled the start of the fight as immediately from the get-go Elyon blasted a twin-headed flamethrower towards Max. Max dodged the attack easily as he rolled through sideways, standing up unharmed as he dusted his robes off. The audience erupted upon seeing such a big move being used straight from the opening bell. However, only the wise understood that Max had successfully taunted the enemy into wasting a chunk of his mana pool. "Nicely done," Rudra said with a smile as he watched the battle with interest now. Max unsheathed the bloodsucker sword and charged towards Elyon, but just as Grandpa Drax warned, he was only a tad bit faster than his opponent, who managed to maintain the gap as he began running parallelly away from Max. Bind, bind, bind. Elyon spammed bind spells every 5 seconds as he tried to capture Max into his trapping spell. However, Max managed to evade the attack successfully. Sword intent, wind slash. Max coated his sword with his special skill, Sword Intent, as the blade began shining with a thin layer of aura that boosted its attacks, before slashing out with a wind slash towards the opponent. Wind Wall. Elyon, forced to defend, had to stop in his tracks as he erected a wind wall to stop Max's attack. The momentary pause allowed Max to close in on Elyon as he pretended to launch a wind slash once more. Wind Wall. Elyon tried to protect himself, as in premeditation of Max's strike he erected a wind wall once again. Max smiled, as he did not attack, but instead counted to 4 seconds in his head before jumping as high as possible while clutching his sword with both hands. Overhead slash. The duration of wind wall was only 5 seconds and Max perfectly timed his strike in a way that the moment the protection of the barrier ended he came crashing down on his enemy with an overhead slash. Crash. Max's sword hit the ground hard as it seemingly missed its target. Looking around quickly, Max saw Elyon teleported 20 meters away as his opponent had apparently used a short-range teleport spell either via his own ability or with the help of an artifact. Max took a deep breath, and faced him once more as Grandpa Drax alarmed him in his head, he is trying a mental manipulation spell. The level is too weak and you are immune, but the spell he is using intends on making you see 3 opponents instead of 1. The primordial vampire race had an racial advantage of being hard to manipulate mentally, as Max had gained a basic mental manipulation protection when he became 1. While he was not affected, Max understood that this was an opportunity for him, as he pretended to be affected as he said, "What the hell, why are there 3 of him now?" Elyon smiled, thinking his spell was a success as he began charging towards Max off his own volition. Max turned slightly right off where Elyon was charging, pretending to face his clone which wasn't there, as Elyon stopped only 5 meters away from Max and used the twin-headed flamethrower once again. "Go, now." Max jumped with all his might at the perfect instance, taking Elyon by surprise as the twin-headed flamethrower missed its mark and Max turned perfectly midair to land an overhead slash towards Elyon. 3070 critical hit. The overhead slash connected perfectly as Max chopped off nearly 50% off his enemy's HP. How? Elyon was shocked as he quickly recovered by using a wind wall to block Max's follow-up attack as he activated his artifact to teleport him away once more. The crowd erupted in cheers over Max's move as Elyon bled profusely from his head. The 50% HP shaved off, rocking his confidence as he became more cautious. From the spectator stands, Rudra smiled, stroking his chin as he witnessed the match progress, as he low-key felt proud of his brother's scheming. Although he could point 100 mistakes in his fight up to now, his overall score for Max's tactics was a solid 6 to 10, while execution of those tactics was at an even better 8 out of 10. His brother was showing actual talent in his fight against a stronger opponent. He had improved from his fight on Earth a few months back, and for Rudra, watching him progress like this was extremely satisfying. /////A/N. Bonus chapter for hitting the PS target. Good job everyone. We have also hit the 100 chapter milestone before the novel became even 2 months old. So I guess celebrations are in order. Cheers to many more chapters to come /////.